Okie dokie. In this video, we're continuing the Math 1014 Test 1 exam review. Let's get started. Starting with some factoring techniques. Starting with the basics. They ask us to factor this. We split it up into two factors, both starting with x. We are looking for the two numbers that multiply to 24 and the two numbers that add to 10. So my suggestion is run through all the factors of 24 and kind of like simultaneously check, do those numbers add to 10? So 8 and 3, 8 plus 3 is not 10. 12 and 2, 12 plus 2 is not 10. 6 and 4, 6 plus 4 is 10. So we do positive 6, positive 4. 6 times 4 is 24, and 6 plus 4 is 10. So these are our factors. Next one. Note, we don't have a coefficient of 1 here. So this is my approach. I'm going to multiply this 4 over to the 6 so that we then get rid of it from in front of the x squared. And we have x squared minus 11x plus 24. Now we factor this like we would normally. We're thinking of two numbers that multiply to 24 but add to negative 11. Interesting. A moment ago we got 8 plus 3 is positive 11. So maybe 8 and 3 will work again. We just have to be a little bit more clever with the signs. Negative 8 times negative 3, a negative times a negative is still a positive 24 in this case. And then negative 8 plus negative 3 is negative 11. So these are, the right choices. However, keep in mind, at the start, we multiplied the 6 by the 4. So here's where this method that I call the slide method, this is where it gets a little tricky, I guess. You have to remember to divide by the 4 since you multiplied by the 4 at the start. So we divide both these by 4. If it divides nicely, you divide it nicely and you get x minus 2. If it does not divide nicely, you throw that 4 right in front to get 4x minus 3. And these are the correct factors of the original expression. You can always check. If you're ever unsure, you can always check if these are the correct factors by foiling this out. If you multiply this out, x times 4x is 4x squared. X times minus 3 is minus 3x. Negative 2 times 4x is minus 8x. And negative 2 times negative 3 is plus 6. So we have 4x squared minus 11x plus 6, and that's exactly what we had up there. Let's keep it going with, which one do I want to do? Let's do GCFs next. So greatest common factor. It's a good thing to check for when you're factoring anything in general is, do these terms have a greatest common factor that I can pull out? Let's start with the numbers. 12 is almost there, but 12 does not go into 42, so maybe 6 would be the next best choice for numbers. Let's think x's. What's the biggest amount of x's? What's the greatest amount of x's we can factor out? That would be x squared. So 12 divided by 6x squared, 12x to the fifth divided by 6x squared is 2x cubed. Plus 24 over 6 is 4. X cubed over x squared is x. So x. 42 over 6 is 7. X squared divided by x squared is nothing. Is 1. So this is done. We factored out the GCF. Let's keep going. Here we have negative 8, 6, and negative 12. They're probably wanting you to factor out a negative. It just makes it look a lot nicer if you take it out at the start. So greatest common factor, 2, negative 2. Yeah, so we'll pull out a negative 2. How about x's? We have x to the fourth, x squared, x cubed. So we're going x to the 2. And then y to the 7th, y to the 9th, y to the 5th. The greatest amount of y's we can pull out is y to the 5th. So negative 8 over negative 2 is 4. X to the 4th over x squared is x squared. Y to the 7th over y to the 5th is y squared. 6 over negative 2 is minus 3. X squared over x squared is 1. Y to the 9th over y to the 5th is y to the 4th. Minus 12 over minus 2 is plus 6. Cubed over squared is 1. X, y to the 5th over y to the 5th is 1. So we are done. So that's a little GCF practice. A lot of fun stuff there. Let's keep it going with factoring by grouping. Whenever you see 4 terms like this, chances are you are factoring by grouping. split it in half, pairing the first two terms together and the last two terms together. Starting with the first two terms, let's factor out the GCF. We can pull out a 5, and we can pull out an x. That will leave us with an x plus 3. Going on to the next pair. Pull out a GCF. We can pull out a 2. We can pull out a y. That will leave us with x plus 3. It is no coincidence that x plus 3 matches across both these terms here. So what we're going to do is essentially factor out an x plus 3 from both these groupings. When we pull out x plus 3 from here and from here, what are we left with? We're left with the 5x, and we're left with the plus 2y. So we are done. That's factoring by grouping. Let's do one more. Group, GCF 3x. What's left is x plus 4. Group, we can pull out a GCF of minus y squared, leaving us with a positive x plus a 4. X plus 4 is matched. That's a good sign. So you can also just think about it as like, we're going to keep that x plus 4 and then just like gather the rest of the stuff around it. So 3x minus y squared. All right, that was a lot of factoring methods. In the next video, we will do some simplifying rational expressions and simplifying more rational expressions, I guess, with multiplication and division as well. And then I think that'll be it. All right.